I still remember the exact moment I got the email. It was a rainy Tuesday afternoon, and I had just come back from my part-time job when I saw it. Congratulations! You've been selected for the final round of interviews for the Global Futures Scholarship. I froze. My heart pounded in my chest like it wanted to escape. This scholarship? It wasn't just a ticket out. It was everything I had been working for, dreaming of, sacrificing for. Growing up, my family didn't have much. And when I say that, I don't just mean money. We lacked support, warmth, and at times, even basic understanding. My parents were distant. They praised my sister for everything. She was the beautiful one, the charming one. Me? I was just the girl in the background, trying to build a future through books and scholarships. So when I got that email, I didn't tell anyone, not even my best friend. But she found out. My sister, the one who always smiled sweetly in front of guests but rolled her eyes when I spoke. She found out I had an interview scheduled in London. She didn't say a word. She didn't congratulate me. Instead, she waited. I didn't know it then, but behind that calm smile, she was planning something I would never forget. But here's what she didn't know. I had learned, from a lifetime of being pushed aside, to always have a backup plan. And thank God I did, because I was about to need it more than ever. The week before the flight was a blur of nerves and excitement. I spent every free minute preparing for the interview, reading articles about the program, practicing my English pronunciation, even trying on the one blazer I had, just to feel ready. And my sister? She watched me closely. She sat across from me at the kitchen table, scrolling through her phone, occasionally throwing in comments like, "You know they only pick one student from the country, right? Don't get your hopes up." It stung. But I had grown used to her little jabs. What I didn't know was how far she'd go to stop me. 3 days before my flight, I double-checked everything: travel documents, printed emails, my scholarship papers, passport. Only my passport wasn't there. I froze. I searched every drawer, every folder, every coat pocket. Nothing. Travel. I tore through my entire room. Still nothing. Travel fee? That night, I didn't sleep. I just sat on the floor, staring at my empty travel wallet, trying not to cry. The next morning, I asked my sister if she had seen it. She shrugged. "No idea. Maybe you lost it." But I saw it. The quick glance she gave me, the tiny smirk, and my heart sank. She didn't need to admit it. I knew. She had taken it. She wanted me to miss the interview, to lose my chance, to stay here, in this house, in this life, beneath her. But what she didn't know was that I had made a copy. Not a fake, not for travel, but a certified duplicate stored at the university office, just in case. And now, it was time to use it. I never imagined I'd have to rely on that backup. When I first applied for the scholarship, one of the professors at my university had said, "Always keep a certified duplicate of your documents somewhere safe. Not everyone around you will root for you." At the time, I thought he was just being overly cautious. But now I understood exactly what he meant. The next morning, I woke up early, my chest still tight with panic, and took the first bus to campus. The university office wasn't even open yet when I arrived. I sat outside, clutching my backpack like it was the only anchor I had left. As soon as the doors opened, I rushed in and explained everything. I tried not to cry, but my voice cracked as I spoke. The admin lady, kind and calm, nodded slowly and walked to the back. A few minutes later, she returned with a sealed envelope. My name was on it. Inside were certified copies of my passport, my scholarship documents, and my student records. She looked me in the eye and said, "You're not the first student who's been sabotaged by family, and sadly, you won't be the last. But you came prepared." That sentence hit me harder than anything my sister had ever said. I wasn't alone in this. I wasn't crazy for thinking someone close to me would hurt me like this. I walked out of that office stronger than I walked in, but the fight wasn't over yet. Because I still needed to get to the capital, reissue my passport for travel, and make it to the interview, and I only had 48 hours left. I was running out of time, and my sister still thought she had won. After leaving the university office with the certified documents, I booked the next available overnight bus to the capital. It wasn't glamorous, cracked leather seats, a leaky ceiling, and a broken AC, but it was my only shot. I sat alone by the window, my backpack pressed tightly against me like a shield. Every time the bus stopped, I jolted awake, afraid that somehow everything would fall apart again. My mind wouldn't stop racing. What if I couldn't get an emergency passport in time? What if the embassy needed something I didn't have? What if this was all for nothing? But then I'd hear the admin lady's voice echo in my head. You came prepared. That phrase became my anchor. Somewhere along that dark highway, as the bus rolled through unfamiliar towns, I started thinking about my sister again. I tried to imagine what had driven her to do this. Was it jealousy? Was it fear that I might finally become someone? Or was it simply that she couldn't stand the idea of me stepping out of her shadow? And the most painful thought of all, did my parents know? I had always been the quiet one, the one who made things easier for everyone. Maybe that was my mistake. At sunrise, the city skyline appeared like a promise on the horizon. My phone buzzed with a message from the scholarship committee, reminding me of the final interview date and time. I had 24 hours. As I stepped off the bus, exhausted but fueled by a mix of adrenaline and desperation, I knew one thing for sure. No one, not even my own sister, was going to take this chance away from me. The embassy building loomed over me like a mountain, tall, gray, indifferent. I stood outside for a moment, taking a deep breath to steady myself. The morning air was sharp, and I hadn't slept. But there was no room for fatigue now. Every minute counted. When I walked in, the security guard barely looked up. Emergency travel services, counter 4. The line was long. My palms were sweating. I couldn't stop tapping my foot. When it was finally my turn, the woman behind the glass looked at my documents, then at me. Lost or stolen passport? She asked. Stolen, I replied, my voice firmer than I expected. By someone I know. She blinked, surprised by my honesty, then nodded. Do you have police documentation? I handed over the copy of the report I'd filed at the local station. She examined it, stamped it, and said, Wait here. It'll take a few hours. Hours? I had less than a day before the interview. I sat down and stared at the clock. Time felt like a cruel joke. My phone buzzed. It was a message from my sister. You should have just accepted your place in the family. You always tried to outshine me. Now look where you are. I stared at the screen in disbelief. I wasn't angry, not anymore. I was done being hurt by her, done trying to prove myself to a family that refused to see me. I put my phone away and whispered to myself, this time, it's for me. At 3:47 p.m., they handed me my emergency passport. My hands trembled as I held it. I wasn't just going to make it to the interview. I was going to walk in with my head high, not because I was perfect, but because I earned it. Every single step. The emergency passport felt warm in my pocket, not because of the temperature, but because of what it represented. Freedom. Power. My second chance. I booked a last-minute ticket with the remaining balance on my savings card. It wasn't business class. It wasn't even economy plus. It was a middle seat on a red-eye flight, but to me, it felt like a throne. As I sat in the taxi headed to the airport, my heart finally slowed. I stared out the window and let the city blur by. For once, I wasn't replaying my sister's betrayal in my head. I wasn't thinking about how my parents still hadn't called or texted. I was thinking about the girl in the mirror, the one who didn't fold when everything went wrong. I arrived just in time for check-in. The woman at the counter asked for my passport and itinerary. For a brief second, I panicked. What if there was something wrong? What if I missed a step? But then she smiled and handed me my boarding pass. Have a good flight, she said. I almost cried. At the gate, I sat between strangers. Everyone was glued to their phones, tired, silent. But inside, I was buzzing. Not with nerves, with resolve. I thought about the interview ahead, the scholarship committee, the future I could still grab hold of. And then, right before boarding, my phone lit up again. This time it was my mom. Your sister told us everything. Why are you being so dramatic? This could ruin her reputation." That was it. No apology, no concern for me, just a reminder of where I stood, or rather, where they thought I should stand. Behind her. Beneath her. But this time, I boarded the plane anyway, and I didn't look back. When I landed, I was exhausted, but adrenaline carried me forward like a second heartbeat. I checked into a small hostel near the university. Nothing fancy, but enough to rest and change before the biggest meeting of my life. I stood in front of the mirror that morning and saw someone I barely recognized. No makeup. Puffy eyes. A wrinkled blazer I had stuffed into my carry-on. But underneath all that, strength. Quiet, unshakable strength. As I stepped into the campus gates, I felt years of self-doubt peel away. For so long, I had lived in my sister's shadow. She was the golden one, the favorite, the one whose mistakes were forgiven before they were even made. But here, none of that mattered. Nobody here knew her. Nobody here saw me as the other daughter. I was just me. My achievements, my resilience, my voice. The interview panel was intimidating. 4 professors, each with eyes sharp enough to read past rehearsed answers. I sat down, palms slightly sweaty but smile steady. The first question came. "Tell us about a time you faced adversity and how you overcame it." I laughed, not mockingly, but because the irony was too poetic. "I'd be happy to," I said. And I told them the truth. Not the polished version, but the raw one. About betrayal. About losing everything. About rebuilding a plan with nothing but grit and hope. I saw something shift in their eyes. Respect. Curiosity. Maybe even admiration. They asked about my research goals. My long-term plans. My dream to make education more accessible for marginalized girls in rural communities. Girls like me. When the interview ended, one of the panelists smiled warmly. "We appreciate authenticity," she said. As I stepped outside into the afternoon sun, I realized something. Whether I got the scholarship or not, I had already won something greater. Myself. I returned home to silence. No confetti. No warm hugs. Just my old room, with its familiar creaks and faded posters, and the lingering knowledge that someone I loved had tried to sabotage my future. My parents barely acknowledged I had left the country. My mom looked up from her cooking and asked, "How was your trip?" Trip. She knew what it meant to me, but maybe admitting that would mean admitting how wrong they had been. My sister, on the other hand, avoided eye contact altogether. She mumbled something about being stressed and not thinking straight. I didn't push for an apology. By then, I'd learned that expecting remorse from people who hurt you only delays your healing. So I poured myself into my routine again, waited, checked my email 20 times a day, replayed the interview in my head 100 more. Then, 3 weeks later, the email came. Subject: "Congratulations." My breath caught in my throat. I clicked, hands trembling. "We are delighted to offer you a full scholarship to join our graduate program this fall." I stared at the screen, unable to blink. Tears welled up, not just from joy, but from relief. From pain. From the countless nights I thought I'd never be enough. I ran outside barefoot, letting the cool evening grass ground me as I screamed, laughed, and cried all at once. I did it. Despite everything, despite them, I did it. But a part of me couldn't help wondering, would they finally be proud? Would my sister care? Or had this whole journey not been about them at all, but about me finding the strength to rise, even when no one clapped? A few days after the acceptance letter, my sister knocked on my door. It was late. I was packing, folding clothes, stacking books, making space not just in my luggage, but in my heart for a new chapter. I opened the door slowly, not knowing what to expect. She stood there quietly, no smirk, no attitude, just eyes rimmed with guilt. "Can I come in?" she asked. I nodded. She sat on the edge of my bed, picking at the loose thread on the blanket. Silence stretched between us like a bridge. Neither of us knew how to cross. "I shouldn't have done it," she finally said, voice barely above a whisper. "I was scared. Scared you'd leave me behind. Scared you'd be more than me." There it was. The truth. Jealousy, fear, maybe even love twisted into something unrecognizable. Something ugly. "I'm sorry," she said again, this time looking right at me. And for a moment I saw the sister I used to build pillow forts with. The girl who braided my hair, who laughed with me in the dark when we were kids, pretending the world wasn't broken. But I wasn't that kid anymore. "I forgive you," I said softly, "but I won't forget." She nodded, tears in her eyes, and left the room. That night, I sat in bed, holding both grief and grace in the same breath. Maybe we wouldn't ever be the same. Maybe trust doesn't always grow back, at least not the same way. But I knew now. I didn't need anyone's permission to fly. The day of my departure came faster than expected. The taxi pulled up to the curb, and my mother stood at the door, eyes misty but proud. My father gave me a silent nod, the kind that says everything when words fall short. My sister didn't come. I didn't expect her to. I climbed into the back seat with my suitcase, but something inside me felt lighter than the weight I was carrying. This wasn't just a trip, it was a rebirth. As the plane took off and the city shrank beneath me, I looked out the window and smiled. Not because I was escaping, but because I had survived. Survived betrayal. Survived doubt. Survived a moment that could have easily broken me. At the orientation week, I met students from all over the world. We laughed over language barriers, stayed up talking about dreams, culture, and food, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like I belonged. Not because someone gave me space, but because I claimed it. I emailed my sister once, told her I hoped she'd find her own path, one that didn't need to sabotage someone else's. She never replied. And that's okay. Some chapters don't get closure. Some people stay behind, not because you left them, but because they chose not to move forward with you. I walked the university grounds every morning like I had finally stepped into the life I was always meant to live. And I carried this lesson with me every step of the way. Sometimes the people closest to you won't believe in you. That's why you must believe in yourself louder than their silence.